What is it that keeps me up at night as a PC gamer? Well, like many other people, it's the thought of having to download yet another launcher to enjoy our games. Most of us, we've probably got big libraries on Steam, maybe GOG as well, but over the years there has been a lot of launcher creep. You've got the Epic Store, of course, which has used exclusives, held games hostage to try and get people to download the launcher and play on this other platform, I guess we could call it. There is Ubisoft's Connect, a total pile of trash. You've got EA's Origin, and all of these flimsy, crappy launchers, they are of absolutely no benefit to the player at all. It's really only been Steam and GOG, ironic because they're the ones who've had some success. They've made their priority trying to make the player experience as positive as possible. Most of these other ones, like the EAs, the Epic Stores, they seem to be about, at best, they help developers, but they certainly don't help the paying customer, the person who's actually downloading these games, paying for them, and trying to have a decent time on the PC platform. So in thinking about this, I stumbled across, on a gaming site, a discussion about people still doubting that a PC PlayStation storefront is coming. It did get me thinking, because we know in recent times all the talk about Xbox collapsing, everything was trouble in paradise for Xbox fans, but things aren't really going that well for Sony either. The whole sort of console space, maybe Nintendo aside, it's not really doing that well, or at least they're not making the billions and billions of dollars that they're expecting to make. We know that Sony have already been releasing some games on PC, but they've been doing it extremely late for the most part. Games like Horizon Forbidden West, which has either recently come out or it's coming out soon, I can't remember, I don't really give a shit to be honest, but it is coming out much later than it released on PS5. They've done this for other games as well, God of War, Spider-Man, and so on, and their aim seems to have been, we'll release games exclusively on PlayStation, because if we don't do that, we're not confident that people will actually buy a PlayStation. We need to use exclusives to get people to buy into the ecosystem, but we still want some money from PC players. We'll release our games there maybe later on, maybe a year or two down the track, and they sort of sold this to everyone with the logic that if you buy, say, God of War, maybe you will then go and buy a PS5 or something so you can play Ragnarok on release when it comes out. That's what they kind of said, but it sounds like things are changing. And Sony, because they're not making all of the money in the gaming space, not those billions, they may be looking to release games day one on PC. We've already seen it with games like, is it Helldivers 2? I can never keep up with the live service names. I think that's right. That did release on Steam on PC day one. It is a live service, so you can make the argument that it was for the player numbers. I think it's got crossplay and all of that sort of stuff. So it was about having a healthy game. Is that an outlier, or is this going to happen with future Sony games as well? Is this the start? Well, interestingly, some news has actually just broke, and I think it's kind of relevant here. We can see in this tweet, Jason Schreier, the big industry insider, he says that PlayStation is laying off around 900 people across the world, the latest cut in a brutal 2024 for the video game industry. PlayStation plans to close its London studio, which was responsible for VR games, whatever. But more importantly, among other divisions, the layoffs will hit Insomniac, responsible for Spider-Man, Naughty Dog, the Uncharted, Last of Us studio, and Guerrilla, responsible for those Horizon games, Zero Dawn, and so on. So even their biggest studios are getting hit by layoffs, which essentially means they're not making as much money as they were expecting, and maybe they are in a little bit of a panic mode. They're looking for more revenue. Where's that really going to come from? Probably PC. That's really only the place they can go. There are some Xbox fans, copers, who seem to think maybe the day will come where Sony puts their games on Xbox, but I mean, I can't really see the Xbox console getting any bigger, and I don't think Sony cares enough to ever put their games there, no matter what happens. I think for Sony, it's really just about PC if they're looking at alternatives. So obviously they're looking to make more money. They've made this clear. And all the news about the layoffs today, they've talked about having to change their strategy. So I think it makes this topic even more important. The idea of Sony's PC strategy. Now, I assumed that they were just going to start releasing games day one on Steam, pretty much, and that would be it. And that may still happen, but I found this interesting, people talking about them maybe making their own storefront. As I said at the start, I am not a fan of this. If Sony do this, and they release some sort of storefront of their own, the PlayStation PC store, and you can buy all their games day one, I'm probably just going to avoid them entirely. I assume if they do this, it will be some sort of timed exclusivity, which we have had enough of as PC players. The amount of shoddy shit that Epic has pulled over the years, no one likes it. And it turns people against the devs when they hear that maybe a game developer, even if it's an indie company, they've taken money to lock their games away on Epic. It just makes their fans totally disappointed and feel like they've been hung out to dry, because it's like, great, you took a bag of cash to make me, the user's experience, worse. Because rather than just continuing to use my Steam library and all the features available to me, you want me to go on Epic and have a worse experience as a customer just so you could get some quick money up front. It's not going to build a long-term audience. People are sick of that, and many are going to feel the same way about the Sony PC store. Now, I did see some arguments for this, and basically they're positive about the idea of a Sony PC launcher. And they say that the big sellers are going to be stuff like cross-platform purchases, trophy synchronization, and PS Stars program. Now, I don't even know what that last one is, so it can't be that much of a selling point if I'm sure many people have never even heard of it. But I've heard this a lot, the idea that if trophies come to PC, it's going to be some massive, huge thing. I'm just going to hit people with what might be a hot take. When you play on a platform and you're collecting things, whether you're on Xbox collecting achievements, something I used to do, by the way, when I was a bit younger, and I mainly played on an Xbox. I've had these times on consoles. I haven't sort of always been a PC person. But getting achievements in-game, it's a bit of a dopamine hit, and sometimes if you spend too long at it, too many years getting these achievements or getting these trophies, it's more just about the feeling of getting it and that dopamine hit, I honestly believe, not that these systems are actually that rewarding. When I moved to PC and I started playing on GOG, I was playing a lot of older titles, there were no achievements, and I started to realize, hang on, the enjoyment's about the content, it's not about a stupid trophy or whatever it might be. I think if you're on console all the time collecting these trophies, maybe you care. If you purely game on Steam and you're used to just getting Steam achievements for everything, maybe you really like this, but I honestly don't see the value that much. And I also think if you're primarily playing on PC and you're using Steam, these other launchers, and then suddenly there is a Sony launcher where you can get trophies, I don't think anyone's going to give a shit. This isn't extra content. It's a little noise and a little icon. That's literally it. If you were someone who, and I really think this is a minority of people, those who love playing on PS5, but they happen to have a gaming PC, and therefore this feature would be useful, that you can get trophies on your console, then you can move over to PC and keep getting trophies. Who really would those people be? I don't really get it. I feel like most people who would get value out of Sony releasing PC games, they're people who never play on a console. They're people who just want to enjoy all their games in one place. This seems like the value add is for people who already game on a PS5 and just gives them more options. I really don't think that Sony are going to be making all this extra money if that's the value proposition, just making things slightly better for their existing user base. Then there's this idea of cross-platform purchases. Now again, this is really only valuable for someone who already games on a PS5. Who cares about this? If I play on PC primarily, I'm not a member of the PlayStation ecosystem, which I'm not. I don't own a PS5. I've got a PS4 for Bloodborne, but that's literally it. I played like one game on it. Lucky me, I had to spend $300 10 years ago for a PS4 to play one game. Oh, such value. But the whole cross-platform thing, again, it only helps people who already have a PlayStation console. If you're on PC, what does this do for you? Oh, if I want to buy a console one day, then I don't have to re-buy the game again? Well, I did have to spend another $500 on a console. If I really cared about this having multiple ways to play, I'd just buy the game again on Nintendo Switch, or I'd get a Steam Deck or something to have a few more options. This person goes on to say it doesn't even need to take Steam down or anything. Sony absolutely want to make PlayStation a player on PC. They literally already have one of the most popular storefronts in gaming. There's a lot of cross-pollinating available for them if they're actually serious about being aggressive. This seems like total cope from a Sony fanboy who's just not really thinking about this properly. Epic have invested literally billions of dollars to try and beat Steam, and they fucked it all up with their approach because their whole priority, their business strategy, was to make the Epic Store launcher convenient for developers by offering a lower percentage in terms of how much Epic would take from each sale, and that's basically about it. They wanted it to be convenient for devs, inconvenient for the paying customer. That strategy, it bit them in the ass. They totally failed. The reason Steam is a success is because Steam have always focused on the paying customer first, and they've probably done some things that might not be great for developers all the time, like the refund system. There are games that are only a few hours long, and sure, there might be some people who refund a game after experiencing most of it. The dev loses out. It's the same for other things like user reviews. Not all companies are going to like that. But these are features that are great for us, the paying customer. So Valve, they focused on us, the people who are actually spending money on the platform. And for devs, they just have to work around that stuff. They might not always like it, but if you want to be part of the ecosystem where all the PC players are, you've got to buy into it. So Epic failed in trying to do so, and I really don't think Sony would do much better. It's not like they're going to have the Steam refund system or anything. So this person can talk about all the big sellers, but there's also a lot of drawbacks. I don't think any of these strengths are actually really providing that much value for someone who primarily plays on PC. It is just for people who are already part of the Sony ecosystem. If Sony actually do release their own launcher, I don't want to go near it. I think a lot of people are going to be in the same boat, and we've seen this with the games that they're releasing currently on PC. If you look at the sales numbers, some of them are okay. I think God of War sold reasonably well. But any of these games that came to PC years after the initial PlayStation release, I think that PC players have voted with their wallet somewhat. They feel like second-class citizens because Sony are treating us like second class. They released the game late. They say their motivation is to get you to buy a PlayStation so you can get these exclusives on release anyway. They don't sound very serious, or at least they haven't so far. And a lot of PC players go, no, you can forget about it. I'm not going to buy your game for $80 on release on Steam when it's currently sitting on the PlayStation in the discount bin for $20 because something like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart has already been out for years on PlayStation. Why would a PC player want to pay full price just because you finally got around to releasing it on PC? They're not going to do it. They don't do it. The sales numbers reflect that. And I do think it is partly why Sony are talking about new strategies, which is probably going to be day one PC releases. But if they totally drop the ball and they try and do their own launcher and lock their games there, and then say, oh, we'll release it on Steam after it's been on the Sony PC launcher for a year, then we'll put it on Steam, you're just going to run into the same problems that Ubisoft do. I don't have the exact figures for Ubisoft games, but they have been absolutely putrid to PC customers. There was a long period where their games were only on Ubisoft Connect. I think it used to be called Uplay or whatever. I can't keep up with it. I simply don't care about Ubisoft these days. They're pathetic. Their games are just bad these days. They feel copy and pasted. It's been Assassin's Creed 2 for the last 15 years. Every game has felt the same. But they kept their games only on Ubisoft Connect, and you had to download a launcher. Eventually they came groveling back to Steam, but there's still all these little barriers. For instance, there's no Steam achievements. I know I mentioned I don't really care about trophies and things, but it's still a nice little convenience, and it's pathetic that they actually got away with not releasing the Steam achievements. I feel like Steam should be the ones to say, hey, we're not letting your games on the platform if you're going to leave features out that actually exist. You can still get these achievements through Ubisoft Connect, which you actually have to have installed on top of Steam to play their games. It is totally ridiculous and convoluted. Even talking about it, I'm confusing myself. The whole thing is just stupid, and if Sony go down the same path, they're just going to have the same problems that they have right now. Many people will wait on Steam. They're not going to download this launcher. They're not going to care. And even when they release the game on Steam, most of these people, including myself, are not going to buy your games on release on Steam because it's going to be an old game by that point. No one wants to pay full price. They're just going to wait for a sale. Sony will only have success with this if they release day one on Steam, and it's not even about Steam itself. It's just releasing the games where the players are. Maybe one day Steam falls off if Gabe has an accident and then the money-hungry vultures swoop in and figure out how to extract as much money as possible from Steam in the shortest space of time. If that ever happens and us as players are forced to move elsewhere, well, then we'll want the games to follow us. We'll want companies to release games on whatever the next Steam is, whatever happens there. So for someone like, or a company like Sony, they have to release their games where the players are. They cannot expect us to come to them because, I'm sorry, your games, sometimes they're okay. They are not must-plays for the most part anymore. They had a period, and that's why I mentioned Bloodborne earlier, that probably was the period where I felt they had something that was a must-play that I had to experience. And I was willing to inconvenience myself to have that experience. But that was 10 years ago or something. Horizon Forbidden West, Spider-Man 2, these are just rehashes of old games. They're not gonna get someone to really go out of their way. That ship has sailed for them, being a company that produces these absolute must-plays. They seem to release solid enough games that I'm sure plenty would be interested in, but they're only gonna have success if they do what's best for the PC audience, and they respect them. Stop treating people like second-class citizens. When I see this news about a potential PlayStation storefront, it just grinds my gears because I just want to see the PC experience get more convenient, not less convenient, because that's going to become a problem. Enough of these launches. I'm not saying I don't think there should be competition to Steam, but there's got to be other ways to do it. There's got to be something else that people can come up with, and for Sony, it would be probably about the 30% cost. It may also be about just wanting to make PlayStation a bigger name itself on PC. That could be another motivation for the launcher. It's not going to work. If they do this, it's going to be another big mistake, and if you do so, you're going to be having more of these layoffs because you move to PC. It's not going to result in a massive growth in revenue, I feel. So you have to do what's best for us. Don't do this launcher nonsense. Just release the games on Steam, and if the games are good, people will buy them when they come out to support them. That's about it. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.